We are going to be talking about levels of organization in living things. As you go through this slideshow, you can complete your levels of organization graphic organizer that looks like this. With each category as we go, starting from the top, working down to the bottom. So the smallest level of organization within the human body is the cell. This is your circular column on your paper. We have different types of cells depending on their job because we are multicellular. That means that cells perform different jobs. So we have nerve cells. We have actually 3 different kinds of muscle tissue. We have striated, which is part of voluntary muscle movement. And these are things that you actually control, like moving your arms, moving your legs, things that you have to kind of think about doing in order to use those muscles. Then we have smooth muscles, which are part of our involuntary movement. This is things like your heart beating. You can't control your heart beating. Now that you're thinking about it, you notice it, but you don't have to think about your heart beating for it to actually beat. Same thing with breathing. You don't really have to think about breathing for breathing to occur. And then we have cardiac muscle, which is specifically muscle that your heart is made out of. And it's cardiac muscle because our heart is part of that material. Your bones are all made out of a material or cells called bone cells. Gland cells, these are certain glands in your body that produce chemicals. Then we have blood cells, we have red blood cells, and then all of these different types of white blood cells: lymphocyte, monocyte, neutrophil, eosinophil, and basophil. And then, just like you learned about in 7th grade, we have reproductive cells. Biological males produce sperm, biological females produce ovum, or you may have referred to them as eggs. If we are thinking of the cell and a living organism as a city, the cell is like the building block of an organism, which makes it just like a brick would be in the formation of a city. Your graphic organizer should now look like this. If we take a group of cells and we put them together, we actually get something called a tissue. And you have 4 main types of tissue. You have muscle tissue, which can be cardiac, smooth, or skeletal muscle. We have nervous tissue, which is a group of nerve cells, part of your brain, spinal cord, and nerves. We have epithelial tissue, which is a fancy way for saying skin. It's kind of like that material like skin. It's the lining of your GI tract, other hollow organs, and your skin surface, your epidermis, which is your entire outer layer of skin. And then you have your connective tissue, things like fat, tendons, cartilage, bones, anything that's kind of used to like connect things, I guess you would say. So if we're talking about tissue as a group of cells, your bricks, if we put a group of bricks together, we would get a wall. So tissue is kind of like a wall. Your graphic organizer should now look like this before you move on to the next slide. Then we have our organs. Organs are a group of tissue that work together. You have a lot of organs in your body. These are just examples of your internal organs. Some of them you probably know, things like kidneys, your heart, your brain, your lungs, and then some other ones that you may not know of, like your pancreas, your gallbladder. Any sort of muscle that you have is a organ. Any bone that you have is an organ. Your lymph nodes, which are part of that chemical process and passing things around in your body. Arteries and veins, which pass blood, are also organs. So in the same way that a group of tissues forms an organ, if we were going back to our comparison of a city, a group of walls would then make our house. So our organ is kind of like a house in a city. It's its own individual unit, and it's composed of a bunch of walls that work together. Same thing, an organ is its own individual unit, and it's composed of a group of tissues that work together to perform the same function. Pause and fill in your graphic organizer for the organ now. Different organ systems. So organ systems are composed of organs that work together to perform certain tasks. On the left-hand side over here, you have 4 examples of some organ systems. You have your skeletal system, which is every bone in your body. You have the muscular system, every muscle in your body. The nervous system, all of your nerves that tell you and process pain and feelings and your senses. And then we have our cardiovascular system, which does include the heart and all your veins and arteries, and it's everything that gets pumped around to the body and how oxygen moves through the body. So when we go back to our analogy of our city, if we take a group of houses and we put them together, we get a neighborhood, just like a group of organs put together makes up an organ system. They all work together, but they're still individual. If we were to put all of our organ systems together, then we get our organism or a human. If we take all the different neighborhoods in a city and put them together, then we get a city. Your flowchart should now be completed and filled out. So make sure you go back, rewatch this video if needed, fill out your organ system flowchart as you watch this video. Go back, rewatch as much as you need to.